The colonel grabbed her by the hair. What she did next shocked the entire base. No one expected it. Not the officers standing nearby, not the soldiers watching from a distance. A senior colonel, decorated, powerful, untouchable, reached out and grabbed her by the hair in front of everyone. The entire base froze. What happened next wasn't loud, it wasn't violent, but it would end careers and redefine authority forever. Welcome to United War, where we bring you real-style military stories about discipline, courage, and moments that change everything. Today's story isn't about battlefield combat. It's about power abused and control reclaimed. This is the story of a woman who stayed calm when she was humiliated, and how her response shocked an entire military base. The base was operating under high pressure. An upcoming inspection had everyone on edge. Mistakes were not tolerated. Among the officers was Captain Maya Reynolds, a logistics officer known for precision, silence, and professionalism. She wasn't loud, she wasn't political. She simply did her job and did it well. But her success had drawn unwanted attention, and not all of it was positive. Colonel Richard Hayes had a reputation, brilliant on paper, feared in person. He demanded obedience, not respect, and anyone who questioned him paid for it. When a supply report showed a delay traced back to his department, the colonel was furious, and he needed someone to blame. It happened near the motor pool, wide open, crowded, impossible to ignore. The colonel stormed toward Captain Reynolds, shouting accusations before she could speak. She stood at attention, calm, silent. Then he crossed the line. In a moment that stunned everyone, the colonel grabbed her by the hair, not hard enough to injure, but hard enough to humiliate. Gasps rippled through the area. No one moved. No one spoke. Captain Reynolds didn't scream. She didn't strike back. Instead, she did something no one expected. She slowly raised her hands and gently removed his grip from her hair. Then she looked him directly in the eyes, steady, unafraid. That look alone unsettled him. The colonel's hand had been removed from her hair, not with force, not with fear, but with control. And in that moment, something shifted. The power he thought he had slipped. The motor pool stood frozen. Engines idled. Boots stopped moving. Captain Maya Reynolds returned to attention as if nothing had happened. No accusation, no emotion. That calm was unsettling. Colonel Hayes hesitated, just briefly, before barking an order to disperse. But no one moved immediately. Too many people had seen too much. Junior officers exchanged glances. Senior NCOs stiffened. They all knew the rules. They all knew what they had witnessed. Physical contact, public humiliation, abuse of authority. Captain Reynolds had not reacted, and that made it impossible to ignore. That evening, a quiet knock sounded on the duty officer's door. A staff sergeant stepped inside, then another. Statements were given. Times were recorded. Details matched perfectly. No exaggeration, no drama, just facts. Colonel Hayes sensed the shift immediately. Meetings were canceled. Emails went unanswered. Doors closed. He attempted to regain control, raising his voice, tightening discipline, reminding everyone who he was. But authority built on fear cracks when exposed to light. Captain Reynolds finally spoke, not in anger, but in protocol. She filed a formal report. Clear, precise, documented. No emotions, only facts. And with that single action, the chain of command was activated. The base would never be the same again. The report had been filed. The witnesses had spoken. And now the chain of command was awake. What had begun as a moment of humiliation was turning into something far more dangerous, a test of power, truth, and accountability. Within 48 hours, investigators from higher command arrived on base. Unmarked vehicles, quiet authority. Interviews were scheduled, security footage was reviewed, every detail mattered. Captain Maya Reynolds answered every question the same way, calmly, clearly, without embellishment. Her professionalism left no room for doubt. The Colonel under pressure. Colonel Hayes, however, unraveled. He denied everything at first, then minimized it, then blamed stress and misinterpretation. But stories don't change when they're true, and his did. A pattern emerged. As the investigation deepened, old files resurfaced, previous complaints, unreported incidents, transfers that suddenly made sense. Nothing had ever been proven until now. Captain Maya Reynolds hadn't just reported an incident, she had exposed a pattern. The base felt it. Rumors spread, tension thickened, the colonel's authority weakened by the day. Orders were questioned, silence followed his commands. Respect cannot be forced, and fear has a short lifespan. End of Part 3. Build to final. The investigation neared its conclusion. One final meeting was scheduled. The highest-ranking officers would attend, and Captain Reynolds would stand in the same room as the man who had tried to break her. The investigation was complete. The witnesses had spoken. The pattern was undeniable. Now only one thing remained: the truth, spoken aloud in front of everyone. The hearing was held in the base command hall. Senior officers filled the room. Legal advisors stood quietly along the walls. Colonel Richard Hayes entered without ceremony. His posture was rigid, but the confidence that once followed him was gone. Captain Maya Reynolds entered moments later, calm, composed, unshaken. When asked to speak, Captain Reynolds didn't look at the colonel. She addressed the panel. She described the incident exactly as it happened. No anger, no drama, no exaggeration. Just facts, just protocol. Then the witnesses spoke, one after another. The room grew heavier with every statement. Colonel Hayes finally spoke, but the words no longer carried weight. Contradictions surfaced. Past complaints were cited. The pattern was clear. Authority built on fear had finally collapsed. The ruling was delivered without hesitation. Colonel Hayes was relieved of command. An official reprimand issued. Further disciplinary action authorized. No applause, no celebration, just justice. Aftermath on the base. The base changed overnight. Voices softened. Respect returned. Boundaries were no longer blurred. Captain Maya Reynolds didn't seek recognition, but she had earned something far greater: trust. Closing lesson. Power doesn't come from rank alone. It comes from restraint, from integrity, from knowing when to stand firm and how. Captain Maya Reynolds didn't fight back. She didn't shout. She didn't break. She followed the rules, and in doing so, she exposed a truth that could no longer be ignored. This is united war, where real strength is measured not by force, but by honor.